So of the many stories that I cover and collect and curate, this is one that made a lot of noise, obviously, just because of, of what it is. And so I'll give you the first part first. And we'll go to this screen. So Lupe Fiasco, it was announced just after New Year's that he will serve as rap professor at Johns Hopkins University's Peabody Institute. And why can't this go away? Why is this here? Go away. I don't care. Why is the Golden Globes here? Whatever. So this is interesting. We often talk about the intersection of hip hop and education here, hip hop and higher education, the good, bad, and ugly of that intersection, that juxtaposition, that, coming together. It happens very often in great ways. I work with a number of people in hip hop academia. We've had them on this show. We talk about it a lot. We read the books, we talk to the professors, we talk to the people, we talk to the folks at Howard who have done a hip hop studies minor, the intersections of hip hop and academia, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when it works well, it works great. There are some questionable behaviors that we want to make sure, we watchdog on and make sure aren't happening. And we want to make sure that, that the culture isn't exploited for ivory towers to, fill seats, but not really contribute to the culture from whence they take, right? So there's a lot of things happening with that. That being said, Lupe Fiasco to serve as rap professor at Johns Hopkins University's Peabody Institute. If you haven't been following hip hop and academia, and if you haven't been following Lupe Fiasco, this might seem like some big news. Like, oh wow, this is big. This is huge, and it is. But it's not unexpected. Lupe Fiasco, in particular, one of the there's been a few, but one of the few commercially known, well-known, successful artists who have gone on to take his craft and incorporate it or interact with academia on some level. He was at Yale doing some work, and he had been at MIT as a visiting artist, doing some work with them in their with their linguistics and teaching rap and doing classes and doing lectures and colloquiums. I forget how you say the word. So anyway, so this isn't new for Lupe. He's been doing this for quite some time. Johns Hopkins University, at the same time, the Peabody Institute, we reported on this a couple weeks ago. Wendell Patrick over there has set up a Bachelor of Music program at the Peabody Institute. The Peabody Conservatory, by the way, is a very well-renowned musical conservatory out of the Johns Hopkins University system, and it's been around for a while. It's like super well-known. It's great and acclaimed and all of the things. So yay to all of this. So Lupe gets tapped to bring his, as a professor of rap over to the Peabody Institute, Peabody Observatory. This is good. If you heard my interview, I just mentioned a few minutes ago, if you heard my interview a few episodes before the end of the new year with Rainey Antoine, Professor Rainey Antoine Jr. of Loyola University in New Orleans, he teaches at their bachelor program. Peabody Institute made noise by saying that they're the first, degree program in hip hop. It's not entirely true. It's the first Bachelor of Music program for hip hop. Loyola has had the Bachelor of Science program in hip hop music, performance and recording and blah, blah, blah. So they've had a similar program for a little while as well. The reason why I mentioned that is because Rainey Antoine used to be a student at Loyola University and explained during our interview how when he was learning to do music, these are performance and recording. And so think of them as music schools, not the hip hop studies that we talk about often when we talk about like what they do at Howard. Like the minor at Howard is a hip hop studies minor. And so you're looking at things like more from a cultural standpoint, a sociological standpoint, an anthropological standpoint. This is much more like music creation, music making and music, right? And what Rainey says about going into Loyola, which had a fabulous program and they had music program and they'd been around for a long time and they were similarly acclaimed, and you can learn about the music business, you can learn about production, you can learn about engineering and mastering and all the things. But as an R&B/hip hop artist, he wasn't finding that there were actually faculty that were teaching sort of modern song making, modern music making. They didn't have the chops to make, to really be like in tune with modern ways of making music, which incorporates hip hop and R&B. Tells a great story about saying, I wanted to learn how to make my 808 drums like really slap. Like I really wanted to make them, hit. And I needed to know, like, engineering wise from a, digital production standpoint, how that happens. And he would have professors saying, just use a bass guitar. Or he wanted to use, how do I fine tune my auto tune to get that effect that I'm looking for that mirrors like some, modern stuff. And you could have your, opinion on whether auto tune, whatever. But they said, well, you shouldn't use auto tune if the singer singer you're working with needs auto tune, then they can't sing. And they wouldn't give them like that knowledge. And for better or for worse, that knowledge is what's being used in modern day music making. So I say all that to say, if you have a modern day music making academic space, conservatory, college, trade school, wherever you learn music, you must incorporate hip hop from a, authentic place. It's simple. I don't care whether you think hip hop should be in the academy or hip hop should be intertwined. You must do it. If you have classical, if you have jazz, if you could take a polka class and you can't take a hip hop class, then you're doing damage to the humanities that is music, right? Because that is what music is today. So, that being said, it has to be there. I talked to the late great Jarrett Scheel from the Berklee College of Music some years ago. Again, go in the archives. Great interview, and Jarrett extolled these same ideas. You have to have it. It's ridiculous to not consider music. It's funny also because it's so late in the game, like that we're talking about Loyola and Peabody as being like the first couple. Like that means there's only a couple. So it's still hard. It's still hard to understand that there are so many organizations and institutions that don't consider hip hop when you consider music making, even though it's by far the most influential and, practiced music on the planet. Anyway, so Andrew Wang says now AI can do all of that. Ha. Well, we're going to talk about that. So again, and that's going to be like part 3 of this. So Lupe Fiasco, rap professor at Johns Hopkins. So great. That's cool. No problem with that. Lupe is pretty qualified. He's a deep lyricist. He studies the art of rap, sort of like the science of rap. And it's a great thing to learn, even if you don't go to college to become a rapper. Maybe you're just working in music production and you get a job as a producer, or you get a job as an engineer, or you get a job as all these different things you could do in the music business besides like being the rapper and being the person on stage. It helps to know the craft of rap. And I think for the craft of rap, it's good to look at rap in these ways and have someone like Lupe who's going to kind of break it. So I think that Lupe's work as a professor of rap in this regard has been good. Cool. Yay. Part 1. Part 2 is a recent post that came up on his Instagram page, basically the day after or at the top of the year. I'm not going to get into it too much because part 3 is where we really want to dig in. But part 2 says that he made this thing called Ryman Shop, a multimodal, multimedia, I'm reading off of his Instagram page, creative musical sandbox. Ryman Shop's DCS, or Data Compression Services program, is small batch physical musical releases or flavors available only to holders of Ryman Shop's DCS USB card or bowls. New Ryman flavors go into the bowls. The first set of Ryman Shop DCS V1 bowls were released during the Samurai Tour. By the way, dropped a great album last year called Samurai. During the tour, he apparently gave out some USB sticks, and that was, like precious. And what you're able to do is you're able to basically be fed new information, new data, new music exclusively through this kind of, think of it as a fob, right? Think of it as a direct way of getting things that you can only get through this physical thing that you have. That's pretty cool. That's a cool way of using technology to say, hey, listen, I'm giving out these things, these bowls. that you need to have physically in your hand. And if you have it, you plug in your computer, you'll be able to get this new release, and hopefully not a virus to your computer, because that'd be a terrible thing. It'd be a big surprise. It'd be like, Lupe, I thought I was getting music, and he'd be like, ha ha ha, I own your computer, and now give me 20 Bitcoin or your mother dies. That'd be terrible, and I don't condone anyone who does that. However, it's probably not that. It's probably Lupe saying, hey, I'm going to give you some new music, but you have to have my little special thing to be able to get it. Cool, yay, makes sense. I like it. And he says new bowls, new things will be released, and you're going to get that. So again, on this show, we like to talk about innovative uses of hip hop. This is pretty innovative. This is cool. This is some digital forward thinking stuff. I like it. I'm sure his fans like it. Cool. Y'all with me so far? You still with me? All right. I love it. Yes. Okay, cool. Hip hop and collegiate academia is spreading. Absolutely. I'm happy to see it with some reservations. We're going to talk about some reservations in a second. And we do talk about reservations. We often push back against it. It's not perfect. My buddy did this with new remixes with USB drives. Yeah, I think that if you're doing it from a way of kind of connecting to people and giving them up, Kane Mayfield, obviously I'm long overdue to have him on the show. Nat, if you're still here, Kane, put out an album. You get the vinyl, you open the album cover, there's a QR code, you scan the QR code, and it'll point you somewhere different every couple of weeks. You'll get new releases, like stuff like that, where it's changing and it's dynamic. Even what Kanye did with Life of Pablo, putting the album up on the streaming platforms sort of before it was finished, or maybe when it was finished, but then he was like, but I'm going to change it. And so you may hear a new version of the song that I uploaded to the stream. So in other words, it was dynamic, and you may go another time to listen to the song and it's going to be different from when you first heard it. Like that's clever stuff to me. That's clever use of technology. And that's where technology, works. And that's where I think artists, especially DIY artists or, just artists in general, instead of complaining about, streams on Spotify, and we talked about how Spotify has been, stealing money from artists and doing all these weird things with algorithms and AI. Okay, that's something you have to deal with. At the same time, don't just block technology. There's things you could be doing that are innovative and cool. And so having a physical thing, and you have to have this physical thing, it creates a sense of rarity, and it's like a collector's item, and it's like Pokemon cards, and that's what Lupe is doing with this thing. So, okay, we're good so far. Part three. Oh, let me just say real quick. Nat Cruz said, and we're talking about Kane. His upcoming release will allow you to select which tracks you want, and there are different eats and artists that generate. I get what you're saying. You may not have finished your sentence, but yes, so that's great. Imagine like you have, Kane's been around for a long time. Known Kane for a long, long time as well. He's been doing this work for a minute. He's an innovator, and y'all should follow him. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, beats. Oh, beats. Okay, that's better than eats. Yeah, that makes more sense. Thank you. Okay, which tracks you want, and there are different beat and artists that get generated. Cool. So it's like a living mixtape. It's like choose your own adventure. It's like choose your own adventure for music. I love it. I see that. She said the food talk is king. Yeah, New Orleans is still on your mind. Yo, we should do a retreat. We should do a Hip-Hop Could Save America retreat, and it should be in New Orleans. It has to be in New Orleans. We have to make it work. So, okay. So Kane Mayfield doing that type work. Lupe doing that type work. That's what I want artists to like listen to our show and get like inspiration, right? Copy the idea, do the same damn thing. It's really cool. I'd be really proud if I had a Lupe Fiasco USB and only 3,000 of them exist and blah, 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 right? Cool. So bang. But here's where he got a little bit of hot broth, okay? Now I'm gonna make food puns all night. All right, cool. Oh, hey, what up? Charlotte's in the house. Just got here, but loving the idea of going back to owning something and not borrowing it. Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, right. So, all right. But here's where Lupe got into a little bit of hot broth. I'm reading because it's small on the screen, but let me switch. Let me just show y'all how funky I get. There There we go. All right. So what it says now, it says, imagine, he goes, and now endless loop, L-U-P. This is from Lupe Fiasco's Instagram page. Imagine if there was a 24-hour, fully AI-powered radio station trained on all the intricacies of my rapping abilities and was carefully refined to produce the highest quality possible Lupe Fiasco songs. One more time. Imagine there was a 24-hour, fully AI-powered radio station trained on all the intricacies of my rapping abilities and was carefully refined to produce the highest quality possible Lupe Fiasco songs. Now imagine it only played a generated song once and never again, endlessly. Now imagine that radio station was only available for certain periods of time and only in certain locations, and that you needed an actual FM radio to hear the songs. Young people, at FM radio is actually when you turn on the radio in the car and it's not Bluetooth and you're not aux cable, it's actually the little 97.2 or whatever. Like, okay. Imagine I put a team together at MIT and imagine we actually built it. Endless LUP, endless loop, coming soon. So, according to Lupe Fiasco's page, he's been working with folks at MIT as part of his, what do you call it? It's a visiting residency. It's an artist residency, but on the smarts tip because it's MIT. So he's been teaching and doing lectures and such. And he's saying that I'm going to have a radio station. I love this idea, like pirate radio, right? Like you have to be in a certain area and listen to an FM radio signal and you'd get a Lupe Fiasco station just on endless repeat. But it's not Lupe Fiasco. It's AI Lupe that's been trained off of Lupe, a language learning model, an LLM, apparently like ChatGPT, trained to rap, to create rap songs like Lupe, sanctioned by Lupe. And as he then further, and we'll talk about, he further clarified, Andrew mentions Suno, yes, with music that's also artificially generated and created. So entire songs made from the Lupe verse, like from the Lupe ether, from the Lupe matrix, that aren't songs. They're just creations of what AI Lupe and AI Lupe's producers would have made in an AI Lupe song, and it would play once over Lupe radio and never to be like played again endlessly until the end of time. So Natalie Cruz says basically building his own language model. Yes. And anyone from I'm, y'all know, guys, I'm stupid. I know things and I say things and I repeat things. So I only know what I know. But we can all make our own language models. Like we can, if I wanted to make my own Chat GPT, I could make a Manny GPT. I use Claude, and I've trained Claude on some of my writings so that Claude kind of knows who I am. So when I say, hey, Claude, I have an idea about a thing. How does this outline work? Does it, can I tweak it in any way that makes more sense chronologically, whatever the hell I'm asking Claude? And Claude will be like, oh, I know who you are. And so, yes, we can all do that to some degree. But this is a little bit of a step farther. And some people did have some qualms about it. I'll read you, I'll get you to one, but Jim says, that's weird to me as someone who does everything raw and live. It is weird for an actual artist out there supporting AI, let alone to do him. Yeah, what on earth? So it's Lupe AI Fiasco, right? So, okay, so we're all feeling, and I'm not trying to lead it, I'm just reporting it to you and saying that some people had a problem with that, and y'all are basically echoing what a bunch of people, may have had an issue with it. As you know, I'm sort of a YouTuber now just because I'm doing this, but I'm not like one of those YouTubers, you know what I mean? Not yet. By the way, thumbs up, like, and subscribe, baby, so we can be one of those. So we can get some of this monetization happening, so we can, spread love the Manny way, and get more people tuned in and turned up with us. Oh God, thank God I'm not watching the Knicks game. Turn it off, Andrew. Turn it off now. I'm warning you. So in the YouTube verse, though, and this is where the rabbit hole goes. Later on, tomorrow, whenever you want, if you want to learn more about some of the intricacies of this developing story, there's three things I want you to listen to. One of them is a YouTube video by someone who's known as Absolutely. And she put out a rebuttal to this when she found out she's a YouTuber and speaks about issues of, music and culture and blackness and all kinds of things. And I'm going to play a clip so we know what we're talking about. And she put out a response which echoes some of your concerns, and I'll play a little bit of it. Then there was a response to the response by Lupe Fiasco himself. He went on an Instagram Live for a couple of hours and kind of addressed some of her concerns. Then, because it was an Instagram Live and not everyone got it, there's a brother named Curtis King who does a YouTube channel called Curtis King TV. Very often talks about music and DIY work and and hip hop culture and all the things. Good channel, good guy. Seems to be well on top of it. Pretty smart. I followed him and watched his work. Who then dissects Lupe's response. So there's like 3 hours more that you can go into of all of this stuff. But I'm just giving you the lay of the land because you might not have heard about it. And also, so that you don't get lost in the sauce, here are some people that are talking about it that I think collectively, because I did this today, I didn't have enough time because I had to do a show, that I got a pretty good grasp of exactly what all the issues are at hand. Hernandez, don't get crazy now, just because, it's not Go Spurs. It's still Knicks all day. Cut it out. Here's the clip from Absolutely's YouTube channel where she responded to this. Let's just listen and watch together real quick. I'm not going to play too long. It's an 11-minute response, but she brings up some interesting points. And also, it, strangely, immediately sounds like AI herself. And then you see that it's a real person and it's not AI. Just the voice. It's nice. It's comforting, but it sounded like it was a robot. And I'm like, is this a real person? And it is a real person. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's go.
Hip-hop, a genre born from the survival and cultures of Black people, revolutionized music by giving Black voices a platform to tell their stories and our collective history. It's more than a sound. It's a culture and a living archive of the human experience.
And by the way, she titles this as a Judas strategy. She's calling this a betrayal against that culture. So, and obviously we are keepers and protectors of the culture here. So this is all kind of up our alley. Listen to it.
Lupe Fiasco has long since been considered one of the culture's most dedicated disciples. And yet, like Judas betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, Lupe Fiasco, a celebrated lyricist and self-proclaimed protector of hip-hop, has chosen to betray the culture and its art by collaborating with MIT to train artificial intelligence to write and perform rap music. In an Instagram post, Lupe introduced this MIT collaboration known as Endless Loop. The post says the following: imagine if there was a 24-hour, fully AI-powered
we read this
radio
part.
station.
All right, we read this part.
Train and syllable uniting together at MIT, and imagine we actually built it. Endless Loop, coming soon. This decision is a monumental betrayal of the culture. Lupe Fiasco's decision to partner with MIT on AI rap development comes under the guise of creating perfect art, but its consequences are far more sinister and destructive. One of the most troubling aspects of Lupe's collaboration is his choice of partner, MIT, a historically white elite institution far removed from the communities that birthed hip-hop. MIT is known for technology, but what kind exactly? Well, let's start with weapons of war used against Black and brown people around the world and in the United States, including autonomous weapons systems developed for the military and facial recognition technology used by law enforcement, not to mention their emotion-detecting AI on some Minority Report type shit. This partnership underscores a reoccurring theme in the gentrification and bondage of Black culture and the likeness of Black people, using Black art and innovation as raw material for projects that ultimately serve white capitalist interests that can even include mass murder. Lupe claims that the project will culminate in a radio station featuring AI-generated Lupe raps. This might sound like a quirky experiment, but the implications extend far beyond his niche venture.
I'm going to leave it at that. Obviously, you could watch her whole clip. It's about 11 minutes long. She gets into a little bit more. And again, immediately, she was like, I agree with her already. And there's more to it, of course. But that's kind of sitting at the heart of a lot of the immediate concerns, the ethical concerns that have plagued, AI since obviously it started creeping into the art space in terms of artists, just regular artists, saying that there are, when you're using AI art, you're profiting off of, you're not compensating artists that the AI system's trained off of to then be able to recreate. Same thing with writers, same thing with, journalism. I'm a journalist. I used to work in journalism. AI is decimating the field. And it's like there are places that are jumping on these opportunities to be able to use these tools to basically replace humans and replace art and artists now. And so it's a big thing. It's a giant, it's not just hip hop. This is a possibly an existential crisis for humanity. I mean, it's not just us. This might be, the thing that ends everything, possibly, maybe. Who knows? But obviously, when we look at, and I've done some work, as you may or may not know, I also do some social justice journalism work, and we've looked at AI years ago. She mentioned facial recognition technology. We did entire stories very early on where facial recognition technology, which is AI powered, which was programmed by people, was falsely denoting people of color as being a perpetrator, matching up, blah, 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 because the AI was programmed by people who also couldn't tell Black people apart. You know what I'm saying? So when they program the programming also has similar functional disparities. And that became the problem when people were getting arrested for things they didn't do because the computer couldn't tell them apart from another person of color or person from that ethnicity when the computers were much better at telling apart white people. And you have to wonder why that's possibly the case. It's because it's being programmed by people who aren't considering these racial and ethnic and all these nuances. So we know that technology can very often detrimentally affect people of color, people from marginalized communities, more so than anybody. So when you look at the field of music making, Andrew mentioned Suno. You mentioned these platforms that are now able to recreate music, create music from nothing that sound like modern R&B, modern lo-fi hip hop, modern rap, and hip hop music, modern pop music. And if you look at it's a whole other story, but if you look at Spotify, the way they've now been accused by some insider information of creating programs that are creating songs that have been artificially generated millions of times to basically take, attention off of actual human artists making music. And if those music and those artists are from genres that are generally represented by marginalized people of color or, folks from those communities and those demographics, they're going to be the first ones to get hurt by this technology that's basically being built to recreate the stuff that they do and fool people into believing that it's done by artists. Right? Does that make sense? Am I on it? Like, is this why this is so problematic? Certainly for art in general, and much more so for artists of color, artists that are making the kind of music we talk about here, artists that have created the most influential and most socially conscious and most important, some would say, music genre in humankind. that is spread around the world and is used as ways to, inform the populace, to spark social change, to spread information, to pass along educational materials that might not be taught about in schools, all of the things that hip hop music can do. And now you're finding ways to supplant and replace all of those people and just make the entertainment portion be all that anyone does, knows, hears, or has access to. Wild. Wild. Good point, Natalie. I'm not mad at AI and facial recognition for not recognizing Black folks. We don't need to be surveilled more than we already are. Watch Coded Bias. We talked to the lady. Was that based off of a book or an article or something? We talked to the lady for our story, actually, in that. But I get your point. I think it's valid. But it's also just, it's more of an example of how the technologies will damage, more folks than others. And I think across the board. So yeah, it's a wild story. And again, to hear that Lupe Fiasco is in the middle of it. Now, let me say this. Lupe Fiasco offered a response, and that should be taken into consideration. I'm not going to play it, but I will tell you where to get it from. So again, Curtis with 2 S's, Curtis King did a story. Also, by the way, Curtis King talks about the Spotify. I'm not trying to send you somewhere else. I hope you subscribed and thumbs up me, but I'm not going to gatekeep. They may not talk about me, but I'll talk about them. It's all good. They do good work. It needs to be shouted out. Also did a great story on the Spotify issue that I just talked about. So if you want to know more about the Spotify issue, so Curtis King TV on YouTube, little more subscribers than I have. He has 304,000, and I have, so he has about 303,000 more than I do, which is fine. It's great. Good story on the Spotify thing. I found out about through him as well. And then if you look at this video right here on his homepage, you actually hear him, because what I love about this is some cool journalism-ish. He basically screen captured Lupe's Instagram Live. So Instagram Lives don't last, you can't go back and watch it. But he was watching it, he recorded it, and then was able to replay it back for the friends of his show. So you hear
it and what their
Lupe,
goals may be.
Fake.
If you
talk Lupe.
Like you wrong.
So here's Lupe.
Right,
oh, you gonna hate this one.
AI and machine learning can do everything that you can do better and faster.
You know how like you defend a friend of yours in front of your other friends, and they like, you wrong for defending him, and he say some shit like this, and you like,
stop. So his response. Now he does a whole long reaction video to it, and it's fun and it's interesting, and I like his nuance to it. There's nuance to this, is what I'm trying to say. Anything that we hear about in hip hop, all these big stories, there's always nuance to it, and that's what we'd like to do here. If I'm gonna talk about a story that's sort of in the mainstream or basically making it to the blogosphere or the YouTubeosphere, it's gonna be because we want to talk about the nuance of it. So listen, if you care about this, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, it's like a 3-hour rabbit hole, right? Right. So effort doesn't count anymore, Andrew says. But one of Curtis's points to one of Lupe's points was this, and I'll throw this out as the playing, white devil's advocate. I'll say that Curtis says it's happening. It is. And Natalie, what do you think? It is happening. This stuff is happening. So what about the argument for being at the table? What about the argument for being part of it and doing it, your way, right? Doing it with your ingenuity, with your interaction, with your effort. Like, you're at MIT, you're, yeah, you're right, Starlet. We should say, maybe let's create a new word. Let's create a new phrase, rabbit hole, going down a deep, whatever hole. But shouldn't maybe Lupe be doing it so that at least he's controlling it? Anyone with enough source material, anybody can make a Lupe AI. Anyone can make Lupe Fiasco. So he's saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to control my own thing. So at least if there's a Lupe AI out there, it's my Lupe AI. The counter to that is, well, MIT's helping you design it. And if you're an elite lyricist and you're sort of like the go-to figure for teaching the world how to rap, and you're going to be the epitome of, lyricist, which is fine. A lot of people would give him, top lyricist, of top 15 of all time, but I don't know, whatever you might subjectively say, that he might be qualified to be on that level. Then are you giving the institutions, are you helping them develop the tools that will create the demise of the very art form you're supposed to be there to lift up and promote, protect, and promulgate throughout academia the proper way? But instead, you're giving them the keys to the cultural castle and then walking away while the castle crumbles. That would be the counter to the counter. So there's a lot of nuance happening here with this issue. Yeah, I think that's the crux here, Nat. It's been happening. You can't run from it. We must center ethics and education, though. So I think that this, like I said, part one of Lupe's story tonight. He's at Yale. He's at MIT. He's at Johns Hopkins. Yes, I'm cool with it all. I love my hip hop academics that approach it authentically and with the culture and with love and with ethical concerns and try to do it the right way, and not just there to as Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings told me on our interview, we don't want teachers to use hip hop. We want teachers to be hip hop, and when you do it that way, you actually do improve the educational space. So yes, 100 times yes. But part 3 of this was, okay, I love what Kane's doing. I love what you're doing, Nat. I love the connection of the hip hop creativity and mindset and ingenuity with the Web3 world. It's a perfect place for it. I talked about it on Kane's show. It's the perfect place for it because it's that kind of ingenuity, that outside of the box thinking that is hip hop. Couple that with the Web3 world and all kind of things can happen. And we need more people. And I want to get Kane on here. I want to get Nat. We should do a panel show, long overdue, to talk about what this could mean for artists, for artistry, because y'all think about it from the creative standpoint, from the standpoint of what you just said. It's here. There's nothing you could do about it. So let's work it without letting it work us. That's right? That's, I think, what we're trying to find a way to say, is that can we work it without it working us? And how do we do that? And is Lupe Fiasco toying that line a little bit too dangerously? I'd like to hear more from the folks that are deep in this game and deeply know, what the ramifications are, what as Charlotte said, the precedent is. So we're going to back burner this because, as I said a couple shows ago, I really want to have a deep-rooted AI hip-hop conversation here. I think that other people are going to do it, and they're going to have people that are just fine to talk about it. But I think we know the types of folks to talk to really get the nuanced, outlook and to get it out. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to do a panel discussion on it. It obviously held y'all attention tonight. It holds my attention. It's a really interesting field. It's a really interesting thing. We'll keep an eye on what Lupe is doing. And that is number 1. We'll do a couple more, but that is number 1 in tonight's segment that I like to call Hip-Hop News That Isn't About Dumb Shit.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one.